So Donald Trump channels Hitler, and we should all be paying attention. Welcome to Law and Society. If you're new, please like and subscribe. And today we're going to talk about Donald Trump's stochastic terrorism and his dictatorial tendencies. There has been many times that I've come to you and said that Donald Trump is a clear and present danger to our democracy. But Donald Trump is also now echoing Hitler in a post created by Midas Touch. Reposted it on Twitter. There is a small list of words and language used in Donald Trump's speeches and messages that echo Hitler. For example, Adolf said, "I will get rid of the communist vermin." Donald said, "I will get rid of the communist vermin." Well, that's identical, right? Then Adolf said, "I will take care of the enemy within." Donald said, "I will take care of the threat from within." Adolf said, "Jews and migrants are poisoning Aryan blood." Donald says, "Migrants are poisoning the blood of our country." Hitler said, "One people, one realm, one leader." Donald said, "One people, one family, one glorious nation." And this little list is really, it hits home. In terms of memes, it's probably one of the more effective ones that I have experienced. And then as we learn more about how legacy media interpreted Donald Trump's words, New York Times sugarcoats this turd of a human being slash wannabe dictator and says Trump takes Veterans Day speech in a very different direction. I mean, talk about being aloof. And then you hear from other news sources where, they beat around the bush. Washington Post didn't. Trump calls political enemies vermin, echoing dictators Hitler and Mussolini. Now, you have those two examples of how a truth is presented. And then you ask yourself, why is the world in such a disarray? Well, because we're not being presented the truth as the truth matters. We're not being presented the truth as it comes to us. We are being presented with, versions and vantage points of the truth by whoever is reporting. Now, Midas Touch forcefully and unapologetically for democracy comes out and gives us this plain explanation. But why is New York Times beating around the bush? Why are other news sources talks about echoing as if, it's the first time Donald Trump has done something like this? It's not. He has echoed dictators and praised autocrats and dictators and brutal dictators and extremist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. He has echoed the words of Hitler. He continues to attack our republic. He mocks and jibes and fights with our judiciary. And all while he's being protected by taxpayer dollars to the Secret Service. There has to come a time when we have to realize as a country what a threat Donald Trump poses. Donald Trump is misogynistic. Donald Trump is anti-Semitic. Donald Trump is pretty much he couldn't care less about anything but himself. He couldn't care less about anything but his money. And that has trickled down to his children, sadly enough, but I won't go into um, Eric and Junior and all of them, because my point to you is that country needs to be aware of the threat Donald Trump poses to not only our republic, but on the foundations of a free press, on the foundations of a strong military, the basic tenets of keeping with our treaties with our allies, and pushing forward democracy instead of honing in power into a tyrant. It is every American's duty to do that. It is every American's duty to stand in the way of Donald Trump and anybody else who would say things like Donald Trump is saying, and who will do the things that Donald Trump did. Remember, from the January 6th committee report and from BLM, the summer before that, the BLM protests in DC, the differences were stark. Donald Trump suggested hitting them with rubber bullets. There were such close flybys of BLM protesters in order to disperse the crowd, that when January 6th came, one of the excuses that the police chiefs gave upon interrogation, upon inquiry, was that they just didn't know how to approach this protest after they were criticized for being heavy-handed with the BLM protesters. So that's why they decided not to lay a hand on any of the information coming out and allow the insurrection effectively to knock on their door when they realized what was happening. I'm not saying they had any malfeasance. I'm saying that's how the truth frame has happened already in Donald Trump's America. Holding the Bible upside down, marching down with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, and his defense secretary, clearing the way. We should remember these things. We should remember how important it is to remind ourselves that Donald Trump is a stochastic terrorist and a clear and present danger to American democracy and liberty of Americans. That Donald Trump, if he gets another chance at power, that he will go after everybody he perceives as his enemies, big or small. He will not put up with criticism. He will upend lives. And if you go down that slippery slope, we don't know where we'll be. But I'll tell you this much. A dictator with Hitler-esque aspirations at the helm of the most powerful military in the world and a diverse population of over 320 million Americans, it is a tinderbox, and it terrorizes me to just think about what would happen to all institutions, all people, individuals who speak out against a dictator Trump. And our focus now should wholly be on November 2024 and ensuring that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris win the re-election and continue the legacy that they started with being one of the most legislatively successful presidency since FDR. And we want to keep this moderate, progressive, wise leadership going in the direction that we are going. That if we even entertain the idea of somebody like Donald, or Donald specifically, the acute threat of Donald being the Republican nominee, because that, it's a shrinking Republican Party and a rising MAGA population and majority in that minority party. So the mirage is set for Donald Trump to think that he can win. But the truth that the majority is overwhelmingly against it needs to come forward in the 2024 elections. And, I'm saying this as he's being indicted. He has been indicted 4 times. And as he continues to defy the rule of law and keep attacking people, keep ratcheting up his rhetoric. It's incredible. It's unreal. I can't tell you that I expected this 3 years ago when I predicted that he was committing seditious conspiracy. I didn't think he would stick around this long. I didn't think I'd be here talking about him for this long. But here we are. And since we are, let us keep reminding ourselves what a threat he is and defeat any chances of him and the rise of a MAGA party. Let us leave that in the dust in 2024 by voting. So with that, I'm done with today substantively. Hey, Derek, thank you for being here. I don't see any questions. I don't think today was much for questions. Oh, there's a question. Sorry. Excuse me. Do you think DOJ is allowing Donald to talk until? I don't think the DOJ works in that way. You think that they would, like the FBI and them would be like hawks at this time, but as we have learned, like the idea of a hawkish FBI clearly doesn't apply to a criminal former president. It's we are in uncharted waters right now. So the idea of them being another violent mob, I don't see that happening simply because the entire country is on alert. But as I have said before, the threat doesn't come from another violent mob. The threat comes from attacks by MAGA extremists like David DePape, Solomon Pena, and the people who attacked the Capitol. These are the people, the lone wolves like David DePape who attacked Paul Pelosi under the ideology of MAGA. Then we had Abigail Shrive sending the death threat to Judge Chutkan, and that was also MAGA related. So you will see it as more of a guerrilla sort of terrorism, acts of terrorism. You won't see it as another violent mob. And we have seen acts of terrorism go up, domestic terrorism go up, acts of hate go up, the acts of anti-Semitism go up since MAGA has come to become a vocal part of our political discourse. We have a MAGA speaker. The leader of the MAGA party is presumptively again running for president, despite the fact that he's 4 times indicted. So we are in the middle of a political, it's political war. It's political. It's. I don't want to be an alarmist by saying it, but it is an ideological civil war that we are in the middle of. The people who want to keep our republic, we are winning at the moment. We won the election in 2023. We won the election in 2024. We need to win the election in we won the election in 2022. We need to win the election in 2024 because the other option is Hitlerizing America. And I don't think America, majority of this country, stands for that, you know? And so we need to keep the momentum going. We need to, even if we are only talking to 2 or 3 other people, we need to keep this momentum going. You know, I'm talking to you. There's 3 of you here. Thank you so much. You will talk about this to somebody, and they will talk about it to somebody else. So the idea of talking about our republic and realizing the threat that Donald Trump poses our republic, and Donald Trump poses minorities and vulnerable populations. Instead of protecting them, he will go after them. Instead of having a free press, he will go after the free press. He will go after organizations, big and small, that talk truth. Not his kind of social truth on Truth Social, but the truth that is based on facts that we witness with our own eyes and ears and that we read every day. The reality, you know, so we are, I mean, if you know, it reminds me a lot. Yes, you're right. 1930s Germany. But we need to not get to the cusp where there is enough sentiment and there's enough complacency. There's enough extremist sentiment on one side, and then there's enough complacency on our side that we say, oh no, somebody else will go vote. There are enough of us. We are a majority. No, you are that other vote. You are that everybody else. Until you vote, you cannot for sure say that you have done everything you can to keep our republic. You know, so I'm looking forward to voting for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I voted for them in 2020, and I'm looking forward to it. And I hope that not just because of Joe Biden's service to our country and what he has accomplished and what Kamala Harris has accomplished, but also the issues of fundamental liberties, of a woman's right to choose, of couples marrying regardless of their sexual orientation. These things are at risk. You know, our children's education, where the tradition of our country is to leave this education to the schools, whether you look at it from the secular history perspective or even in Catholic schools, in religious schools, you leave the education to the school. You don't go and barge in on how the kids are being taught. Because in our public education system, the way that states like Florida and some other states have sort of tried to put barriers on what is being taught, it is entirely autocratic and an overreach of government authority. All the while, people like Ronald DeSantis and Donald will say, we want to take care of you. And by that, it means they want to put the shackles on society, and anything that goes outside of their control zone becomes their enemy. That's how autocracies work. That's how dictatorships work. And we are here witnessing another attempt to upend American democracy, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to do what it's needed, which is go vote when the time comes. So with that said, I'll leave it at that, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.